140 years ago on this very day, a bunch of European delegates met up to speak about Africa in Berlin, with no Africans present in the room. Matter of fact, only 2 of these men had ever been on the African continent, but that didn't matter. For the next 100-some days, Africa would be partitioned and handed out like a piece of pie amongst 13 European nations and the US. But why exactly did all of this happen? Well, to answer that, I've got to tell you about the 1884 Berlin Conference, or what the Lagos Observer called at the time the world's biggest robbery. The road to Berlin was really the culmination of a bunch of things that, all had to do with European interference on the African continent. See, while European exploration of the African continent began in the 15th century, it was very limited, and it stayed limited well into the 17th and 18th centuries. But the discovery of precious minerals in African soil only ramped up outside interest. Different European countries started vying over control of the interior of Africa, and this led to territorial disputes. And thus, the idea of a summit that could promote cooperation and mutual trade for the benefit of all colonial powers won approval. So in 1884, on a cold Saturday afternoon, US and European representatives partitioned Africa along colonial lines with no regard to existing cultural borders. The Berlin Conference, also known as the West Africa Conference or the Congo Conference, effectively formalized the Scramble for Africa and regulated colonial activity. And no African was at that table because their opinion wasn't considered necessary. As an editor of a Lagos newspaper said in 1891, a forcible possession of our land has taken the place of a forcible possession of our person. Europeans carved up a continent of over 30 million square kilometers in under a generation, and at the beginning of the 20th century, 90% of Africa was under European control. And the blatant disregard of ethnic or political boundaries that had been established by indigenous African populations continues to generate conflict today. As former Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere said, "We have artificial nations carved out at the Berlin Conference in 1884, and today we are struggling to build these nations into stable units of human society." But there is hope that moving forward, African nationalism will triumph over the legacy of the Berlin Act and usher in a new, more unified era on the continent.